Our next presenter for the Young Entrepreneurs of the World Conference is someone I'm very excited to introduce. She's been recognized as America's #1 small business expert. As the CEO of Quintessence Group, Melinda Emerson, or as some of you know her, SmallBizLady, advises Fortune 500 companies on how to market to small businesses. She's written for or appeared on most of the major media outlets and is the best-selling author of Become Your Own Boss in 12 Months. I'm on the edge of my seat waiting to see what Melinda is going to share with us on how to become a brand in demand. Melinda, it's all yours.
Thank you so much for your kind introduction, Tina. I'm really excited to talk about this topic today because it's a very common question that I'm asked. People want to know, how do you become a brand online? How do you become a paid influencer? So what I'm going to do is just talk to you today about what you need to be thinking about if you want to become a brand in demand. So let's just jump into it. So the first thing is that as I was just introduced, my name is Melinda Emerson. I'm America's #1 small business expert, and I've been in business well over 20 years. I'm an international keynote speaker and small business influencer and advocate, and I publish a resource blog, succeedasYourOwnBoss.com. My brand reaches 3 million entrepreneurs each week online. I'm also the creator and host of Small Biz Chat Live and the Small Biz Chat podcast. And as was already mentioned, my company, Quintessence Group, works with Fortune 500 brands that target small business owners. But I also serve small business owners too. I have an online school, SmallBizLadyUniversity.com, and I've actually written over 5,000 articles about how to start and grow a successful small business. So I am first and foremost loyal to small business owners. So let's talk about what it takes to become a brand in demand. You know, research shows that people are 6 times as likely to buy based on a recommendation from a social peer when it compares to, traditional forms of advertising. So if you can position yourself in your industry to become an influencer, your influence is far more valuable than any kind of other marketing most brands could ever do. So what does it take to become a brand? Well, number one, you have to figure out what you want to be known for. You have to build an audience of people who are interested in your content and your opinions, and then you have to build engagement. It's one thing to build a bunch of followers. It's a whole nother thing to get your followers to engage, comment, and share. And so what we're going to talk about is what you need to know as you think about that in your business. So now when you think about yourself as a brand, what do you really want? Well, you really want your web presence to give you an opportunity to create authority, reputation, and build an audience. That is what it means to have influence. So what are the 3 or 4 things that you really, really need to do? Number one, you need to figure out a topic that you can be the queen bee or king of. In my world, I'm the queen of small business, like literally, but I chose that topic back in 2007 when nobody was talking about small business. So if you want to become an influencer in your industry, you're really going to have to figure out a topic that's not already oversaturated by a bunch of people. And you've got to figure out a topic that you're going to be willing to talk about 13 years later, right? So you really have to do some soul searching and you have to look at what's out there. If it's already out there, that topic's taken. Find something else. Or if you can take a new spin on a traditional topic, that works too. But, there's tons of beauty influencers. There's a ton of fashion influencers. So if you want to get on that train, go ahead. But it's really, really, really hard to get noticed. So you want to find an uncontested space to highlight your expertise. And you got to create excellent content and you've got to do it consistently. And really, then you've got to work tirelessly to nurture and engage your audience. And the bigger, the better. So let's talk about all the ways you can monetize a brand once you build it. You can monetize emails, blog posts, social posts. You can obviously monetize keynote speeches, videos, webinars, ebooks, e-courses, and certainly media appearances. So what are some of the things that you might want to, negotiate once you are considered an influencer? Well, I mean, baseline is people give you free products and services. There's almost no software that I use in my business that we actually pay for, because most brands give it to me free because they want to say that I'm their customer. You can also get paid endorsements. Those are great, but you want to be careful about who you take money from, because if you wouldn't use it or you haven't used it, I wouldn't endorse it. You also can, develop, if you're really strong at developing content, let's say you're a YouTube influencer or Instagram Reels or TikTok or whatever, you can monetize that content. There are brands that will pay you to talk about their products and services, certainly speaking engagements. And then when you really hit the apex of being an influencer, you can get spokesperson contracts. I'm going to talk about that more a little later. So here's just some of the brands that I've had the opportunity to be a national spokesperson for. You recognize all of these, I'm sure: Google, Amex, the Hartford, Sam's Club, Visa, FedEx, as well as Pitney Bowes. And that's just a small number. I'm also a national spokesperson for Amazon and Verizon. But the point is that I've worked with over 150 brands. So when I'm telling you about the things that you need to do to be able to pitch yourself or to have them come pitch you, this is why I'm speaking from experience. All right, so what are the things that you want to think about as you become an influencer? Number one, you want to set boundaries on what you'll sell and how. You really don't want brands putting words in your mouth. You want to make sure that whatever you say about a brand is authentic and true, because at the end of the day, your audience trusts you. So if you will just take money from anybody and let them program you what to say, you will very quickly lose credibility with your audience. And as I said before, never endorse anything you haven't or wouldn't use yourself. You always want to protect your trust relationship with your followers, because at the end of the day, that's the most important asset that you have. So what's your number one decision? Well, I think it's, what do you want to be known for and why do you do it? When I first got started as an influencer, or when I was trying to become an influencer, I wrote a book, and I wrote a really good book, and I got someone to pay me to write it. I did not self-publish it. And I did that on purpose because back in the mid 2000s, when I just got started, self-publishing was not is highly, it's very pervasive now, but it was looked down upon back in the day. So I got a deal with Adams Media, who's later bought by Simon and Schuster. And I have a book that's been in print for 11 years. I've actually updated it 3 times. My book is Become Your Own Boss in 12 Months. But I decided to use my writing to build my audience. And so we started with the book. Then the market crashed. My book got delayed by 18 months. Then I started blogging. Well, that was the best thing ever happened to me, because by the time my book came out, I had built a significant following and people went out and supported me and bought my book. So those are the things that you have to do, but it takes time. None of this stuff building an online brand is overnight, easy, or quick. So what is going to be your brand name? In my case, my name, Melinda Emerson, was taken on Twitter back in 2008 when I first got started. And I had to come up with a nickname. And I had a friend of mine at the time who was a publicist who was helping me, learn how to use Twitter. And she said, "Oh, wow, we got to come up with a nickname for you." And I was like, "A nickname? What are you talking about? Do you mean like Mindy or Melly Mel or something?" And she said, "No, fool, you're not a rapper. I'm not going to give you a name like that." And so we went back and forth. And then finally she said, "How about SmallBizLady?" And I'm like, I can be her. So what we know now, 13 years later, that was the best branding accident that ever happened to me. You can choose. You can use your name. You can use a nickname. A nickname has worked very well for me because there are thousands of business experts online, but there is only one SmallBizLady. And so having a nickname might be what you want to do, but you also want to think about your blog name. And I'm going to talk about this very specifically because my blog is not named smallbizlady.com, nor is it named melindaemerson.com. My blog is named succeedasyourOwnBoss.com. Why did I do that? Well, I did it because one day I'm going to sell that URL. And I never would have wanted to sell melindaemerson.com or smallbizlady.com because that's actually me. But my asset is succeedasyourOwnBoss.com. And so as you're thinking about your brand, you need to also be thinking about how you can create assets along the way. You don't just want to be some influencer and just get paid to show up. You want to get paid for all of the assets that you have in your business. All right, so the other thing you must do is create excellent content consistently. And I'm talking for years. It took me 2 years of blogging, tweeting, answering people's small business questions before any brand paid any attention to me. So I really want you guys to think carefully about what it really takes. And I mean, you guys, that was 12, 13 years ago. It's probably harder to do it now. So you want to make sure that you are committed and that you are ready to do the level of content and serve your audience without making any money from doing it. Because I promise you, I didn't make a dime from being the small biz lady for almost 2 years. And so you really do want to think about whether or not you really have the staying power to do this. You want to build a niche audience. You don't want to serve everybody. You want to serve a very specific niche group of people, because corporations will come and pay you for access to your niche audience. You don't need to be on 5 social media platforms. 1 or 2 is fine. I built $1 million business from Twitter, from 1 platform. So you do not need to be out here doing TikTok, doing Reels, doing whatever. You just have to pick one. And it should be the one where your best target customer hangs out online. That's the one you should pick. And then you want to find the right engagement strategy. How are you going to get the folks off of social media into, let's say, a private Facebook group, or get them on your email list? You've got to find the right way to engage your audience on and off social media. So the more you know about your target audience, the better you can sell access to them. And let's just face it, visual content is the #1 way to build audience awareness. Video content is converting better than any other kind of content out there. So keep it visual and figure out how to incorporate video. All right, so let me just give you guys some stats on me. My brand is 300,000 on Twitter. My email list is at least 35,000. I think it's actually 50,000. My LinkedIn, actually, this needs to be updated because my LinkedIn is actually 125,000, not 25,000. And my Facebook is higher as well. My point is that if you are going to be a social media influencer, which is what I am, you do have to be on all the social media sites. But I wasn't that in the beginning. And so I show you this to show you just the progression of my brand. And so, because of my reach, and on top of this, I also have subscribers to my blog. Our reach is 3 million a week. And that is something that you can take to the bank every day. I am a specialist in startups, business development, and social media selling. Forbes named me the #1 woman for entrepreneurs to follow on Twitter, and LinkedIn named me a top influencer, but so many other people have. I mean, literally HubSpot, Fortune, all of these people, when they rank the top business experts and small business coaches in America, there's not a list that I'm not top 3 or top 5 on. So, but that is from years and years of grinding. And also it's because of years and years of consistency. That's the thing. People know I put out quality content. People can go to my blog and spend 5 days and get lost in the 5,000 or so articles that I've written. All right, I don't know what's wrong with this slide, but we're going to move on. This slide is just a breakdown of my audience. And I really want to share this because it is really important for you to know as much information about who follows you, who comes to your website, because that is how you can monetize your brand. People want to know who you are influencing. So my audience happens to be 60% women, 40% men, 40% millennials, 29% Generation Xers. So that is information that brands want to know when they're thinking about partnering with you. They want to know who your audience is, who listens to you. All right, so let's talk about audience development. You've got to build an audience profile. You want a primary and a secondary profile. Who are you targeting? So for example, in my business, we focus on professional women 30 plus who are educated. 82% of my audience have a master's degree. Many are mothers. Some are married, some are divorced, but we know that is the primary person that listens to me, that reads my stuff. We also have a secondary audience of men that want to start businesses, but our primary audience is professional women. You want to make sure that you know who your audience is because you want to use their pain points to build content to serve them. You also want to, develop a relationship, learn the hashtag so you can track their conversations. You want to know the best keywords, and you also want to track your competitors who might already be talking to your audience. And you want to create an exceptional free offer on your website to build your email list. We call those lead magnets. So these are all things that are really important. That's how you get people off of social media onto your email list. You do that with an irresistible free offer, also known as a lead magnet. Now, one of the other things you want to think about when it comes to audience development is you want to focus on quality, not quantity. You don't want everybody following you. You want the right people following you. You also want to make sure that you track metrics that matter. Sometimes followers is not the right metrics. It might be how many people converted to your email list that are your followers. And you also want to partner with other influencers that already have access to your audience. Sometimes they'll do it to help you. Sometimes you might need to pay them to get access to their audience. And no matter what content you're putting out, always test it. There's no marketing campaign that works perfect the first time. So you want to test, you want to A/B test everything so that you can make sure that you're putting out marketing messages or content that people really want, that's really going to help people. So you want to create very, very targeted content. And I would invest in design. Clip art and Canva, people can recognize that that's what that is. So use a graphic designer, hire somebody off of Fiverr to help you with your content. And pictures matter, use visuals. You definitely want to make sure that you have a visual brand as much as a content brand. And so if you guys start following me, you will notice that my graphics kind of always have a very similar look. We always use the same colors on things. And that's because we have a visual brand as much as we have a content brand. So let's talk about the things you need to know. You certainly want to be reviewing your Google Analytics at least monthly. Use some kind of social media dashboard that can also give you analytics about who's following you on social media. I really like Sprout Social for that. You also want to be looking at your Facebook analytics. Facebook has better analytics on everybody than anybody. So you do want to look at your Facebook page and who is coming to your Facebook page and what are the competitor pages that are competing with you for the exact same audience. You might have competitors you have no idea about, but your Facebook analytics under the hood of your Facebook page will tell you. Once you get a little bit of money, you might want to invest in a service like Kismetrics. Now it's a little expensive, so you don't want to do it until you're making real money, but you can really find out who's coming to your website with a software like Kismetrics. And certainly you want to invest in SEO. Your website is your number one sales tool and it's your number one asset in your business. So you do want to make sure that you are always driving traffic at the end of the day to your website, because that's the whole point of using social media, is to drive traffic back to your site. All right. So I also want to tell you that, Email is really, really powerful and important because it is the best way to engage your audience, and you can follow up with them to remind them about things or let them know about what your latest offers are. So you want to develop sales funnels so that you can attract your target audience. You want to make sure that you segment your email list. Every email is not for everyone. So you want to make sure that you tag people as they come into your system so that you want to market to them specifically based on how they came to you. Make sure that you're going through your email list every 2 to 3 months and getting rid of people. If someone hasn't opened an email from you in 90 days, they're not interested. Kick them off your list. And then, just establish what your annual, purge rules are going to be. But you don't want to be holding on to people who aren't opening your emails and ultimately not buying your stuff. So make sure that you keep your good email hygiene, as we say. All right, so what do corporate brands want to know about you once you figure that you've built a big enough brand to monetize it? Number one, they want to know who your audience is and how often do they engage with you. So they want to know the difference between new visitors versus repeat visitors that come to your site. They want to know what kind of media presence do you have? Have you been interviewed on TV? Do you do a lot of podcast interviews? That kind of stuff is really, really important. Have you been featured in a magazine in your town? That stuff is important. How big is your email list and what is your average open rate? This is really important because if your open rate isn't at least 20%, your email list is not paying attention to you. So you want to make sure that you are tracking your average open rate on your emails. And you certainly want to be able to tout how many followers, friends, and subscribers you have. And you want to look at how many media impressions you generate. In my business, our direct reach is 3 million, but we generate like 10 to 20 million media impressions every week. So that is the stuff that you want to be able to talk about. You want to talk about your actual followers, and then you want to talk about what your reach is, because that is very powerful and brands are really into that number too. All right, so you want to use social media strategically. You don't want to be on every social media site. 1 or 2 is plenty. You want to make sure when you get to those sites that you listen first. Don't just jump out there. You will quickly make yourself a pariah if you don't learn sort of like the rules of the road of the different social media sites. And you want to review how your target audience spends time online. So you want to kind of lurk and watch and look at what hashtags and stuff people are using, and then pick 2 to focus your activity. So engagement is essential. Social media automation is not going to cut it. I know a lot of you are using some of these social media scheduling tools like Hootsuite and Buffer and that kind of stuff. But listen to me, you still have to check in live and respond to people. You can't just put your social media on, set it and forget it. It doesn't work like that. People want you to respond. People want to see how fast you respond sometimes. So you really want to, make sure that you are ready and that you are plugged in, so that your audience knows you care. They know you're there. So do not get caught up in overusing social media automation. And here's some ways that you can create engaging, you can engage with your audience regularly. Certainly a weekly newsletter would be great. Tweet chats or Facebook groups, monthly webinars, live Q&As. I mean, now every platform gives you the ability to go live, so you don't have any excuse. Video is great. And then podcasts is another way. So there's not one way to do it, but you've got to figure out which way you're going to do it and be consistent at it. So how do you measure your influence as a brand? Well, mentions online, traffic to your website, how many friends and followers you have, how many media interviews and or speaking requests you get, and how much money you're making. And just look at your personal goals. Like, what did you set out to do? When I got started in 2007, 2008, I wanted to be America's #1 small business expert. That was my goal. And I met my goal. By 2010, that was true. And so you've got to kind of have a goal for yourself and then use these metrics to kind of evaluate where you are with it. So how long does it take to build an influencer brand? It took me 2 years. It's possibly a lot longer than that now. Now, once you become a paid influencer, what kind of team do you need to have in place? Well, for one, it's good to have a publicist. Whenever I have a book coming out, I engage a publicist for 6 months, 3 months before, and then 3 months after. Or if I have just a big campaign that I'm doing, I'll hire a publicist for 3 months or so. But the thing you got to understand is publicists get paid whether they are successful at landing you media or not. So you really want to make sure that, and they're expensive. So before you shell out, $2,500 to $5,000 a month, you need to have some specific goals for your publicist before you hire them. You also want a director of partnerships. As brands reach out to you, you do not want to be the person that talks to them. You want to have somebody in between you and them. Like I have a rule, people don't get a chance to talk to me till they're ready to cut a check. So I have a director of corporate partnerships that when a brand reaches out to us, she reaches back out to them. She has the first meeting with them. It's not until, people are signing contracts and stuff that anyone gets to talk to me. You always want to have a lawyer to review any contract. There are influencer contracts that can be a little bit intimidating and scary. So you do want to make sure that you have a lawyer that reviews all these contracts. And when you get a little bit bigger, you might even need an agent. Like if you're trying to get your own reality show or something like that, that's when, an agent might be appropriate. But in most cases, publicist, salesperson, and lawyer is pretty much, what you need in the first couple of years. So how do you handle exclusivity demands? Now, one of the things that you will notice in an influencer contract is that corporations always try to lock you down so that you can't do business with other people. I am a big fan of saying no to all exclusivity clauses, and I won't do it unless the contract is at least 6 figures. I certainly won't do it for $5,000 or $10,000, and I rarely even work for that amount of money anyway. But my point is that beware of one-off deals. Beware of brands that want to do tests with you. Either they're interested in working with you or not. You don't want to do a test with a brand because a lot of times if you work with, let's say, Verizon, and you did a test with Comcast for $5,000, well, Verizon's not going to touch you for at least a year because they're going to assume you're with Comcast. So you've got to be real careful about what brands you work with, and you cannot work with competitors. So I'm Verizon's girl. I work with Verizon. I've worked with Verizon 10 years. And, I happen to be in the hometown of Comcast, and they don't talk to me because they know I'm Verizon's girl, right? So those are things that you want to think about. So you want to do, don't do tests for brands. If you can, try to negotiate 3 to 6 month contracts and just don't ever sign exclusivities. If you do, limit it like to maybe a month after the contract or something like that. And then some of the biggest mistakes that people make, not being original probably is the number one. Not knowing your numbers, not knowing who's following you and who your followers really are. Giving up too soon is probably another one. I see people feel like, they're supposed to get rich like right now. No, there is nothing in life that happens quickly. So just know you have to put your work in, and just losing your focus on your audience. Keep your content consistent with, I only write about small business. And then you don't want to monetize inappropriately. You do not want to, take a small check from a lesser known brand when a huge brand with a lot more money could be coming along. So know who you want to work with. Don't just wait for people to call you, have a strategy for who you want to work with. So here is my action plan for you guys as we wrap this up. Pick a niche topic, cultivate a specific audience, hire a publicist when you get closer to, having something to really pitch. Create content in a new way. You can always use the same content in a new way, and develop ways to engage your audience and keep your momentum going. And that's it. And this is my contact information for any of you who need to find me. If you forget, my name is Melinda Emerson. Just Google SmallBizLady. You'll be able to find anything you possibly want about me. And you can shoot me a note as Melinda Emerson on LinkedIn. All right,
Melinda,
back to you.
This was wonderful. Thank you so much. That was so much. packed into such a short amount of time, and I wish we had all day to just stay with you. This was gold for me, and I know it was for everyone else who was listening. So thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, you're so very welcome. I'm glad that it has served your audience well.
Absolutely. Everyone have a great day.